increase the price of whatever that you're doing or selling. Now, what happens is, if you have to fundamentally understand all these platforms, whether it's Google or Facebook, when these platforms initially launched, there were a lot less companies who were willing to actually pay these companies a lot of money to run ads on their campaigns. In fact, online marketing wasn't even popular back in the days. People used to resort to traditional media like newspaper, radio ads, and whatnot. But as the demand for these platforms actually grew, guess what? More and more people started entering, and more brands started advertising online. Now think about this. If initially, when these companies started, only small startups used to run ads on these platforms. But now you would see billion-dollar companies like Coca-Cola and whatnot who are also using these platforms to advertise their products or services. Now the question is, when you're competing with such big brands, it becomes very tedious for small business owners like you and I to actually really scale. Therefore, you must understand a simple concept of economics, which is supply, demand. Okay. So if supply is limited, right, then and the demand is high, right, the price actually goes high, right? Now, initially, the demand on these platforms was very, very low and supply was very, very high, right? And that's why it was very cheap, right, to actually advertise on these platforms. But now the demand has become increasingly high because, as I said, all these big organizations also want to run ads on these platforms. But the supply is still limited because, see, humans are to humans. Like, they can't just suddenly produce billion more human beings to start using these platforms. So even though the more users are joining this platform, but not at the same rate that they used to earlier, right? So you must understand a simple thing, that you can't do much about the rising cost of these platforms. In fact, these costs will keep on going higher and higher and higher, more higher than you can imagine. So if you cannot control the cost, then what do you have control over? You have control over the price of whatever you are selling, right? So simply, let's suppose you used to spend 100 rupees, and maybe you used to sell something for 300 rupees, and you used to make a 3x return, right? Now let's suppose the cost has increased to 200 rupees, and you are still making the mistake of selling something for 300 rupees. You are doing something wrong. What you should now aim towards doing is maybe increasing the price of whatever you are selling to 600 bucks. Now, how do you go about doing that? Very simple. You can target a much more qualified audience who actually has the buying power to actually pay you whatever you're selling. You can improve the quality of whatever you're offering so that you can, of course, justify the pricing. And of course, you could work on your branding so that there is no reason to justify why exactly you're charging high. Because think about it, does Mercedes or Rolls Royce really need to justify why they are worth what they are worth? No, they don't, right? So simple hack, just increase your pricing and this will automatically take care of most of your problems. And this is something that you could always do. Now, since I am more into consulting, coaching and whatnot, in India, what I recommend to most people is to at least begin by pricing their advice or services at least at a minimum price point of 35,000 rupees to 40,000 rupees. Right now, this is something that I actually began with 30,000 rupees. So this was back in 2018-19, right? Now it's a lot, even like you should probably consider at least a minimum benchmark of 35,000 to 40,000. And if you're selling abroad, the minimum price point I would recommend would be $3,000 to $3,500. For any advice or services that you're selling, because this will automatically take care of a lot of these costs. So that is one hack that you can definitely use in order to, just beat these rising ad costs.